The Letshuoer S12 2024 edition. Let's talk about it. Now, this is an interesting planar done by Letshuoer for their 8th anniversary. It has an amazing packaging, of which we'll show you pretty soon some of the features of this, and it has a beautiful golden faceplate. It costs a great deal more than the current S08 Pro model, but is it any better? Well, simply put, it is better. It's the packaging, the sound, and the overall presentation of this new revamped IEM. But is it worth double the price? That's a whole nother debate. Let's get into the build quality. Now, the shell is slight and comfortable, and from my memory, it is basically the same as the S12 Pro or the Z12 or the original S12. So it is a nice, comfortable shell, but it is slight, and it does, might have some isolation problems, but it's easy to fit, and it has that same kind of design with a nice, pretty faceplate that kind of has this rose gold feel. It does seem to smudge despite my best efforts to clean it off, but overall, it's a nice faceplate, a good small shell, and it's about the same as the other edition. Now, the cable, it does have a nice termination that has a 2.2 and a 4.4, and it does have a nice feeling cable. It has a multi-strand cable that feels good in hand. It has a Y-split, but its chin slider is a little bit disappointing. It's a little bit wiggly and kind of goes all over the place. The cable itself, it feels good. It's kind of simple, but it has a great, beautiful look to it. As far as the case goes, nothing too exciting. Basically the same case they use on the S08 as well. The Letshuoer S12. Now let's look at the packaging since we don't have it all here, but you can tell it looks really good in the pictures here. If we look at some close-ups, you see you get a nice selection of tips. You get a few medallions. The cable is, again, all pretty nice, and it's an overall nice selection. It looks really beautiful, but in person I wasn't as impressed as these photos, but that's not untypical of many designs. So let's look at the graph. The graph isn't anything too exciting. I have to say that, if you look at what's kind of going on here, it does have a nice base shelf. It looks very similar to some other planars. I wanted to show you those planars for comparison purposes and talk a little bit about them as we go. But you'll notice it kind of has a nice rise to about, 2 to 2.5. Has a nice dip around 3K, then it raises up right around 5 to 6K, which I personally am not a huge fan of, and then dips back down again. So let's look at the S12 Pro. And what do you notice about the S12? Extremely similar. You'll notice a large peak right around 15 to 20K. It feels like, as far as sound goes, I feel like the S12 Pro, I don't think it's as good as the S12 2024 edition. I think the new edition is a little bit better. It is a little bit more musical. There's some slight, tiny differences. Possibly it's up in this 15 to 20K peak, but I do find it better and extremely enjoyable. Now, if we look at the latest edition, that's half the price, the S08. I like the S08. It does lack incisive treble, but it is a nice, smooth, clean listen. I think in some ways, if you're just looking to save money and you don't really like the design, I do think the S08 is a safer bet because of the price, and it has very similar packaging without the gaudy gold. But that's just my current take on this. Another one to think about is the Heidi's MP143. You get different tuning nozzles, and it basically becomes a very similar graph. So kind of depends on what you want because these are very similar. Now the Heidi's MP143 again is $143, so you're looking at a lot of money for these accessories. So it's kind of like you're getting a $100 IEM, maybe a $120 M with really nice accessories, a really nice cable, but everything else is a little bit, it's a little bit questionable of whether this is actually worth it to everyone. but I think it might be worth it to some. Another one to look at, just want to show you, this is the Tin Hi-Fi P1 Max 2. I don't know. I like this one, but it had a lot of kind of little bit of a shout around 2K. It just had a smoothness about it, but it just wasn't overly great. Again, I do think the Tin Hi-Fi P1 Max and a lot of these planars are extremely similar in the frequency response. And so I think if this is kind of like, again, this has an interesting niche to it. Another one to look at this $200 price range, you can bump up to the KE4. This is a really good IEM. It's kind of the new meta tuning, and I think this is a much stronger tuning for most people. I personally really like the KE4. I think it's very enjoyable, and I would recommend it sonically over the Letshuoer S12 2024 because it has a nice mellow meta tune. But let's say you already have that meta tune and you really want this planar, it's not a bad pick to talk about. Another one to look at right around this price you can get for even cheaper now is the Giz Audio Chopin. The Chopin is a very nice sounding set. It has great detail and sparkle, has a nice fun kind of bouncy bass shelf, and it does a lot of things very well. I think build quality in the S12 is better, but I think, and then maybe the cable is better, but sonically this is a lot stronger with the Giz Audio Chopin. I do find that I would recommend some EQ with the Letshuoer S12. Again, I would definitely EQ some of this area down, maybe raise this region of the treble around 3 to 4K. But overall, it's a nice sounding IEM. But the problem is that there are other IEMs that are about the same price and just about as good. Let's talk about the sound of this IEM. If you look at the first song on my Super 10 list, which is a public list if anyone would like to check it out, this does have slightly unnatural strings. It does have with great strong vocals. I mean, for me, if I had to kind of give this a rating, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. It's a hard song to do right, but it's not unenjoyable and a very strong, solid set. The next song, O Mio Babino Caro. Excellent pianos, excellent vocals, extremely enjoyable, and I really enjoyed this on the S12 Pro. So if classical music is something you're after, this could be perfect for you. Next one, Rigoletti. Nice male vocals, very nice strings, 9 out of 10. As we go down the list, though, you look at something like Iron Man, it seemed a little bit off and to lack clarity in vocals. It sounded nice, but it wasn't very strong with this Black Sabbath song. We move on to something like Will Survive, and it had a really strong connection. Again, this has a strong connection with certain songs, but when I got to something like like Dicky Titan and Metal, the Metal tracks didn't do well, but the initial track of, say, Jump did also really well. Like the upper mids of this IEM aren't great. It lacks a little bit in dynamics and attack. And the resolution and clarity are good for the price, but they're not insane. It's almost never sibilant. And so to say that for an IEM at this price point is fantastic. And it still has good technologies. To me, it's better than most planars, and it's very competitive with a lot of the other planars out there. It has a balanced sound signature, which, it's not going to be for everyone. It's not really for bass heads. It's not really for treble heads. And so it's kind of in this weird mix where I'm not 100% sure who this is for. The male vocals on this oftentimes seem a little bit off, especially in pop songs. But again, in opera, they did come across well, and they did do some great things. Again, I enjoy music on this, but a few songs, like especially Iron Man, came across a little bit off. The Smiths came a little bit off. And overall, it was like, some songs were an 8, some songs were a 9, some songs were a 6. And so it was just kind of a little bit hit or miss with my library and what I had to listen to. Okay, let's rank this thing up. I mean, I think this is one of Letshuoer's better IEMs, but I kind of would have to recommend the Letshuoer S05 for my personal use. I think the packaging's about the same for what I like. I think you're paying for a pretty design. You're paying for a slightly better S12, but I find there's other things in their lineup. They're as good. Is this better than the S12 Pro? Yes. Is it significantly better? I don't think so. Again, I like the bass on this. I think it lacks some ear issues with the mids and the treble. I think it images pretty well. It has decent note weight and slam. Its soundstage and resolution factor are there. It has some really good things for it, but I just don't find it as incisive in the bass and in its dynamics. I find it an enjoyable set, a good set, but not enough to warrant something that I would want to listen to, and not really something that I would really want to fully recommend to people as something unique in what I have. But it is not a bad set, especially for those people that love that S12 Pro. The S12 Pro, the enthusiast version of the S12. You know, this is a good, nice sounding set. It has a great musicality. I think it has better kind of texturing and layering, and it does some things exceptionally well. I really enjoy this set, and I find it to have some things that I really like. But there's a lot of other things that I don't like. I feel like it doesn't have that dynamicness that I would want. It has a lot of energy and can sometimes come across as hazy and not imaged to the best of an IEM at this price point. Is it a bad IEM? No, but I personally am not a huge fan of planars. A lot of people really like them, but I haven't really found one that really makes it as something that I personally would want to daily drive. I recognize this as a good IEM, but it's also something that I probably wouldn't find myself using were I to have it. Again, this is just a loan set, so I appreciate the guy that sent this to me. And if you guys have any questions about this, let me know in the comments below, and I hope you guys have a great day. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Go watch another IEM video. It's done. That's the entire video. What more do you want?